Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to Season 2 of Meat for the Grinder, our series dedicated to Necromunda Dark Uprising Battle Reports. Meat for the Grinder is a Necromunda campaign set in the final days of Hive Arcos, where Chaos, Xenos, and Order clash for control of a collapsing Hive City. And on this episode, the Lords of the Pit from the Scavvies try to rescue one of their own from the children of the Deep Friah from House Cawdor in a public execution scenario to the death. So for those of you guys who have been watching regularly on this channel, you guys have known that my little sister the kiddo, as well as my good friend Senior Chang, have fought once before in our campaign week. The children of the Deep Friah actually beat the Lords of the Pit in an earlier scenario, and they managed to capture one of the members of the Lords of the Pit. His name was Ted Lee, and they actually managed to capture that guy. So in order to do a rescue mission to save him, we decided to change up a little bit. Instead of doing a rescue mission, we decided to do a public execution scenario, because what else would actually beneficially work for House Cawdor? You just imagine it too, right? I mean, House Cawdor are known for like their intolerance of anything that is mutated. Deadhead Lee, of course, is a mutate, so what better way to destroy him than a public execution via fire before the assembled masses of Necromunda. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, because this battle report is a little bit longer of a longer video, I do have time descriptions in the description box down below, so that you can click and navigate to the part of the video that interests you the most. And at the same time, of course, we'll be talking about exactly what our friends are bringing for their rosters in this one. We're going to play some background music, show you photos of each of the fighters as well as their stats. If you want to see exactly what these fighters are consisting of, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll. So let's talk about the rescue scenario for this one. Public Executioner. My little sister the kiddo will be the defender in this scenario, while my friend Senior Chang will be the attacker on this one. As for the attacker, Senior Chang gets custom D3 plus 7 fighters that he can choose for his crew, while the kiddo actually gets D3 plus 5 randomly chosen fighters for her crew, and the rest of her fighters are actually deployed later on as reinforcements. Now for the defender on this one, the defender actually plays their entire crew in the center of the battlefield alongside the prisoner as well, and they must be able to deploy within 6 inches of that fighter, while the attacker can deploy their crew anywhere within 2 inches of any battlefield edge. Now, in this scenario, what you end up having is what's called the execution clock, which means that you put a D6 next to the fighter who's going to be executed, and your gang has 6 turns in order to try to save him. If they don't save him, he will be executed and pretty much just killed off the bat. So because of that, you do have to worry about that. If you do manage to secure the prisoner, however, the prisoner actually can flee during the end phase D3 3d6 inches, there we go, so that way he can escape off the edge of the battlefield and of course win the game for the fighters on that one. And of course when it comes to reinforcements on this one, the defender will get reinforcements at the beginning of the second turn at the end phase, and they get one randomly chosen fighter. Obviously, the battle ends when the prisoner is removed from the battlefield or if they're executed, and that's pretty much guarantees the victory conditions on this one. For rewards on this one, for credits, the attacker earns 2d6 times 10 credits for their gang stash if they successfully manage to save their prisoner, and the defender actually adds d6 times 10 credits to their stash if they manage to execute the prisoner. Each fighter that takes place in the scenario earns 1 point of experience, and then the fighter who frees the prisoner also earns additional point of experience. For reputation, the victorious gang earns d3 points of reputation, and if either gang battles out, of course, they also lose 1 point of reputation as well. So now that we're done talking about the scenarios, let's talk about the battle plans as well as deployments. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. We're just going to do a little zoom in over the entirety of it so that way you can see exactly where all the fighters are posted at. For the most part, the Cawdor are located right in the center of the battlefield. And if you notice, there's also a huge mob of NPCs in the middle of the table. And the reason why that is the case is because my friends and I were thinking about, if you're going to do a public execution, where is the public in the public execution portion of the battlefield? And that's exactly what we decided to do. We thought it would be kind of neat to actually include NPCs. And not only that, but you could also hide your fighters inside of the NPCs as well. So that way they can kind of go through the crowd, kind of like Assassin's Creed, and then jump out and rescue their captured friend, and that's exactly how we do it. So actually 4 fighters are actually in next to the crowd. In order to find those fighters, we decided to be kind of a cool game mechanic if you had to pass an intelligence test in order to actually spot the attackers, and once you did, of course, they're basically resolved and you can actually open fire on them and things of that nature, and that was to do that to kind of add this scenario just a little bit of flavor on this one. So as you can see here, the Cawdor are completely surrounding Deadhead Lee, who's right there in the middle of the tabletop because they got to play within 6 inches of him, and they're actually putting him right above the Deep Friah, which is a giant jet of flame that's going to gout out here in the end of turn 6 and basically roast that poor guy alive, and burning him in front of the entire audience, so that way they can, you know, purge the heretic and the unclean mutant in the eyes of the Emperor. That's pretty much the scenario, pretty much the battle plans on this one. So the Cawdor, of course, my sister the Kiddo, she's going to try to fight defensively by maintaining a fighting position around the Deep Friah, so that way they can kill Deadhead Lee. Meanwhile, my friend Senior Chain is going to try to attack from both sides of the battlefield as well as from the crowd and try to catch the Cawdor in a full envelopment, so that way he can save his fighter as well. And that pretty much makes the battle plans for this one. So now they're done talking about battle plans, let's talk about deployments real quick. As you can see, my friends are actually, little sisters has her forces right there in the Deep Friah, while my friend Senior Ching has his forces on the left hand side, the right hand side, as well as the back edge of the battlefield. So starting off with deployment on the left hand side for the Lords of the Pit, in the back we have Howler the Cannibal King, as well as Charlie the Choo Choo, which is a warp horror. Howler the Cannibal King, of course, is a outcast gang leader. He's got a lot of mutations on him. He's absolutely deadly as well. Unfortunately, I did make a mistake when I made the roster videos. For the longest time, I actually thought that Howler the Cannibal King was packing a flamer weapon for some strange reason, but actually he's actually packing a Nightshade Chemthorn. The reason why is because, according to my friend Senior Chang, all the little faces that are all over his skin, what they actually do, they shoot out toxic gas because, you know, their breath is horrible, and that's what they use to actually attack their enemies with. So I do apologize for making that mistake earlier in the campaign series. And then right in front of me, of course, is King Slender. King Slender, of course, is another mutant with a shotgun. Continuing on the deployment for the Lords of the Pit. On the left-hand side of the crowd, we have 2 fighters. We have Sockhead up there in the front, followed by the Old Way. Sockhead, of course, is a mutant with auto pistol as well as a horrific mutations. And right next to him is a guy called the Old Ways. He's got another mutant. He's a champion. He's also got a pole arm as well as a whip for his close combat weapon. And the right-hand side of the crowd, we have another 2 fighters. On the left-hand side, that is Master Blaster. That guy is a mutant with multiple appendages. He also got paired pulverizers as well as a hand flamer. And then right next on the right-hand side is another mutant named Bloodrazor, who's got a mutated claw as well as an axe. In the center of the table is Deadhead Lee, right above the Deep Friah, which is about to shoot a gout of flame right into him and actually set him on fire, which is another mutant that's been captured in an earlier battle report. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side of the tabletop, next to the fuel tanks, that character's name is Snarl, a Slag. That guy's armed with a heavy stubber. He's a scaly with scaly skin. And on the other side of the fuel tanks is Hiss, which is another scaly who's got a harpoon launcher as well. And that makes it the deployment for the Lords of the Pit. So, jumping to the center of the table, this is the deployment for the Children of the Deep Friah, which is my little sister, the Kiddos gang. Starting from the left-hand side and working right, we have the Hivequake, which is a Stig Shambler with a pole arm as well as a twin-linked heavy stubber. Next on the right-hand side is Simeon the Summer, which is a Cawdor Brethren armed with an autogun pole arm. In the center is Levitico Bonestorm, which is the Redemptor Priest, who's the leader of this gang. He's got a chain glaive. And next to him is the Angel of Combustion, which is his Cherub Servitor. And following the right-hand side, that is Adamar, which is another Cawdor Brethren with a blunderbuss polearm, and he's also packing bomb rats. And in the center of the Deep Friah, we have 4 Juvies, bone pickers actually. All 4 guys are armed and equipped exactly the same with flak armor as well as twin stub guns with dum-dum rounds. On the left-hand side is Blake, followed by Mordo in the back. On the right-hand side is Malleus, followed by Baphomet in the back over there as well. And filing out when I out my little sister's last of her gang. On the left-hand side there, that is a redemptionist zealot named Sister Rabina. She's armed with an eviscerator. In the center is Sister Silence, a Cawdor firebrand, is armed with a great sword. And right next to him is partner Gisburn, who is a Cawdor brethren, armed with a shotgun with an exterminator. And that pretty much makes up the gang on this one. So now that we're done talking about deployments as well as battle plans, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. Alright, so we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and the Scavvies managed to secure the initiative on this one, so my buddy Senior Chang will be going first. And at the same time, the execution clock begins. We have a D6 there. My friend has 6 turns in order to rescue his compadre away from the Cawdor. Otherwise, those guys are going to deep fry him with a gout of flame that's right beneath him as well. By the way, this is a really cool piece of terrain that was actually created by our buddies Iron Major, who makes all the terrain you see on this channel, as well as the beautiful walls that you're seeing in the Zone Mortalis battlefield as well. He likes to call this thing the jet fan because, you know, obviously it looks like a giant jet engine that's going to burn this guy if he's not careful. So for Senior Chang's very first activation, he has a group activation with Howard the Cannibal King, as well as Charlie the Choo Choo, the War Pourer, as well as King Slender the Mutant, so he activates all 3 of those fighters. And for their activation, they do double movements, going a move directly towards the shanty there, so that way they can climb it and get on that walkway, so that way they can start assaulting the Deep Friah, which is then located in the middle of the battlefield. Meanwhile, the kiddo decides to do a group activation herself, activating Leviticus Bone Storm, which is her Redemptor Priest, who also does a group activation with Simeon the Summoner, as well as Adamar. And those fighters also do double movements for their activation as well. As you can see, Adamar actually takes point, going directly into the crowd to look for the Scavvies are hiding out in the public square. At the same time, in the back, you see Levitico Bone Storm as well as his Angel of Combustion kind of entering the crowd as well. And lastly, Simeon the Summoner had to do a move across the decking there on the Deep Friah to get to the ladder so that way he can go down it on his next turn. For Senior Chain's next activation, he decides to activate Slag, which is his Scaly, who's armed with a Heavy Stubber. And he just has him move up forward, taking cover position right behind that control panel. And the reason why is because Slag cannot fire his Stubber and move at the same time, because the Stubber, of course, is an unwieldy weapon, which means it takes a double action to open fire with that weapon. He does not have a Suspensor yet for his Scaly, so because of that, he just has a simple movement action. For the kiddo's next activation, she decides to activate the Hive Quake. She takes an intelligence test in order to see if she can scan the crowd to see if she can find the Scavvies hiding inside of it, so that way she can open fire with the Heavy Stubber. Unfortunately for her, though, she does fail her intelligence test, so because of that, the Hive Quake, as well as the little guy in the back of him, do not spot anybody in the crowd to open fire onto. Meanwhile, Senior Chang activates Hiss, which is his Scaly, who's armed with a harpoon gun. That character also does 2 movement actions for his turn, dropping down the ladder and also skirting around the back edge. Looks like he's going to try to attack from the back and try to outflank the children of the Deep Friah from attacking from the rear. For our next activation, the kiddo activates Malleus, who's one of her bone pickers, armed with twin stub guns with dum-dum rounds. And Malleus also does 2 sets of movements as well, going down the ladder and going directly behind that barrier there, so that way he can take cover position and intercept any Scavvies that try to enter that way in order to stop the execution from taking place. Senior Chang also does a group activation with the Old Ways, also does a group activation with Sockethead, his other mutant. And the 2 of them do double movements as well, moving up forward through the crowd, and they actually stay inside the crowd, because as long as they're within the crowd, the Cawdor have to take an intelligence check in order to shoot at them. Now, that rule only applies, of course, unless you engage your target in close combat. That's a little bit differently, because you can actually see the guy up close and personal. But if you want to try to shoot into the crowd to get these guys, you have to pass the intelligence test first. From there, Kiddo activates Baphomet, which is another one of her bone pickers as well. And that character also does double movements as well, walking across the bridge directly to the roof of the shanty behind him, then dropping down from the shanty right next to Malleus, so that way he can also engage any Scavvies that come popping out of the crowd as well. And for Senior Chang's very last activation, he decides to do group activation, activating the Master Blaster as well as the Blood Razor, and he sends the Blood Razor first by taking a double action to charge directly towards Adamar. So Blood Razor has no problem sticking the landing face against Adamar in close combat. Unfortunately for both these guys, though, they both end up missing. Unfortunately, my friend Senior Chang was unable to secure a single hit with both of his attacks from his massive claws or from his axe. At the same time, because Adamar is fighting in close combat, base-to-base combat, he actually suffers -1 to hit with his polearm. So because that was another big thing that also kind of prevented him from actually striking back against Blood Razor. The Master Blaster, however, has no problem going in close combat against Adamar. When he actually charges in, he actually gets 5 attacks total as well because he's got paired polarizers. He only needs a 3-up order to hit as well as a 3-up order to wound. If he does manage to stick the wounds on that one, he actually has -1 AP with his pulverizers, and at the same time also does 1 damage as well. What actually ends up doing it for the most part, though, is he does manage to put serious injuries directly on Adamar as well as flesh wounds, but the knockback rule, however, forces Adamar to fall back directly into the corpse grinder that's down below. So because he does fall in the corpse grinder, automatically goes out of action, and when the kiddo rolls for an injury on this one, she actually rolled out cold, so because the Adamar will make a full recovery, so no harm, no foul. But first blood, going to my buddy Senior Chang, as well as the Lords of the Pit. And because there's no more Scavvies left on the table, the rest of the turn is actually dedicated to my little sister's gang, the Children of the Deep Friah. So Blake as well as Mordo are to go and move to the left-hand side, doing double movements along the left-hand side using that walkway. And as you can see, they stop right there in the middle of the shanty roof right there as well to try to stop Howler, the Cannibal King, as well as Charlie the Choo-Choo, as well as King Slender from actually trying to go up that walkway and try to attack from the left-hand side. And lastly, the kiddo activates her last 3 fighters, which is Sister Rubina, Sister Silence, as well as Partner Gizmern. Sister Rubina does a double movement directly across the walkway with her Eviscerators, that way she can open up the flamer attack she needs to and also charge in close combat. As you can see, Sister Silence also backs her up by going right to her directly behind that walkway to lend some support in case anybody gets through those fighters. At the same time, Partner Gizmern also moves up right next to Deadhead Lee, so that way he's constantly got him under watch, that way they can advance the execution clock every turn as well. And with that, that takes directly to the end phase. As you can see in this photo, the Scavvies are slowly making their way directly towards the center where the Deep Friah is located at with the rest of the House Cawdor guys. My sister, the kiddo, is of course deploying her fighters to try to intercept them on the flanks and try to prevent them from actually rescuing their friend at exactly the same time. And because they're defending fighters within 3 inches of the prisoner, the death clock does rotate one more time. So because of now my sister has 5 rounds in order to defend this guy to kill him, and my buddy Senior Chang has 5 rounds to try to save Deadhead Lee from being executed. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 2. My friends roll off for priority to see which of them will be going first. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 2. My buddy Senior Chang managed to win the initiative on this one, so he will be going first in this turn. And for his very first activation, he does a group activation with Howler the Cannibal King, as well as group activating Charlie the Choo-Choo, as well as activating the King Slender as well. So the very first fighter he decides to go with is with Charlie the Choo-Choo. Charlie the Choo-Choo, the Warp Horror, decides to call up a double action order to charge forward, and he goes, of course, directly up the top of the shanty, directly into Mordo. He gets 4 attacks on the charge. He's also got 3+ to hit for his attacks, as well as +2 to wound. At the same time, he also has -1 AP, as well as 2 damage for his attacks as well. Needless to say, Mordo the Bone Picker did not stand a chance against Charlie the Choo-Choo. Managed to take him out of action with an out cold result, so because of that, Mordo does go out of action for the rest of the battle report, and also nets a second kill for the Lords of the Pit. And the next fighter to be activated is Howler the Cannibal King. So the Howler the Cannibal King declares a charge directly against Blake, does a double action to climb it directly to the top of the shanty, engages him in close combat. Howler the Cannibal King gets 4 attacks out of the base with 3+ to hit, as well as 2+ in order to wound. He's got -1 AP as well as 1 damage with the cleaver that he's using against this poor Bone Picker. And as you can imagine, Blake did not stand a chance against Howler the Cannibal King, suffers a critical injury as well and goes out of action. So because of that, my little sister will need to take this guy on a medical escort mission, otherwise Blake could be removed from the roster. As for the very last activation, of course, is King Slender. King Slender does a simple action to climb to directly to the top of the shanty, and a basic action open fire with a shotgun firing a solid slug directly at Sister Rubina. He needs a 4-up to hit as well as a 3+ to wound, and his shotgun solid slug, of course, causes 2 damage with knockback. He does manage to hit Rubina, but doesn't do anything against her, but she doesn't take an initiative test, which she fails, of course, and then she falls off the walkway, but she's perfectly fine, though, doesn't actually take an injury, so she is currently pinned right now. So the Cry of Vengeance, Levitico Bonestorm, actually decides to do 2 things. The first thing he does, of course, is he tests an Article of Faith. Manages to get the Article of Faith related to chain weaponry, which means he gets to reroll any failed chain attacks with his chain glaive. He declares a charge directly against the Master Blaster. Moves out close, stays away 2 inches, so that way he can use a versatile trait of his weapon. He gets 3 attacks on the charge with 3+ to hit as well as 3+ to wound with -2 AP as well as 2 damage directly against the Master Blaster. Unfortunately for my friend Senior Chang, Master Blaster did not stand a chance against Levitico Bonestorm, actually gets put out of action as well, and at the same time suffers a critical injury. So just like that, he will need to take a medical escort mission, otherwise this fighter will die. And unfortunately for my friend Senior Chang, though, he does not have a rogue dog, so this could be potentially disastrous for his game, because that gang mutant leader is actually mutant champion is actually quite points heavy. Luckily for Senior Chang, however, Blood Raiser does manage to pass his cool test in spite of seeing his champion being sliced to death by Levitico Bonestorm, so he basically stands his ground and awaits his next activation. So because of that, my friend Senior Chang decides to activate Slag, and Slag does a base double action open fire with his Heavy Stubber directly towards Simeon the Summoner. He needs a 4+ in order to hit with his Heavy Stubber, as well as 3+ to wound. When he rolls his rapid fire dice, he actually rolls 5 shots on that one. So he's going to have 5 shots with -1 AP as well as 2 damage. So he just opens up with that Heavy Stubber directly into the Cawdor. 3 of his shots land directly into Simeon the Summoner, putting a serious injury on him, so because that, Simeon the Summoner does go crashing face down into the whole card decking of the Deep Friah, and he's currently bleeding out. Also suffered a flesh wound on top of that, so he's only toughness 2 now. Well, the other 2 shots actually went directly into the Hivequake. Now, the Hivequake did get hit with both those shots, but failed to wound, so because of that, the Hivequake is only pinned at this point. So not to be outdone by some dirty mutants with his heavy fire, Stubber Fire, my sister decides to activate the Hivequake. So the Hivequake, of course, does a basic action, get back on his feet again, and he's able to shoot still because he can move and shoot as a special rule for the Stig Shambler. So the Hivequake gets back on his feet again, opens fire with +4 to hit, as well as +5 to wound in order to open fire directly into Howler, the Cannibal King. He will need 5s up in order to wound with -1 AP as well as 2 damage, so he decides to cut loose with his Heavy Stubber. He does manage to hit Howler the Cannibal King, as well as put 2 wounds directly onto him, which is a pretty bad spot to be in because Howler the Cannibal King only has 3 wounds, so he is about 2/3 of the way dead, and at the same time, he is also pinned. So for his next activation, Senior Chang activates Blood Raiser, does a double action charge directly into Levitico Bonestorm, getting in base-to-base contact with him. Unfortunately for my friend Senior Chang, though, the Blood Raiser misses with all of his attacks, so he completely whiffs. Unfortunately for him, though, Levitico Bonestorm, not so much. Even with the -1 to hit in close combat and base-to-base combat, because of his chain glaive, he does manage to hit the Blood Raiser twice, as well as wound him twice as well, cutting right through the Blood Raiser's armor and putting him directly out of action with an out-cold result. So just like that, the entire crowd face on the right-hand side is slowly being eliminated by the Cawdor. So for Senior Chang's next activation is a group activation once again with the old ways, who also does a group activation with the Sockhead, the mutant. And Sockhead declares a charge directly against Sister Rabina, actually sticks the landing in close combat and you're engage that fighter. Unfortunately for both these guys, though, they both just kind of flubbed their rolls. So because of that, Sockhead was able to secure a single blow against Sister Rabina, and Sister Rabina was unable to do anything back against Sockhead as well. So they're both engaged for another round of close combat. The Old Ways, however, decided to show Sockhead exactly how it's done. He also declares a charge against Sister Rabina as well, and he makes it across the battlefield. He doesn't need to make base-to-base contact with Sister Rabina because he has armed with 2 different versatile trait weapons. He has a whip as well as a pole arm. He does have the bulgy biceps of skill so that we can use both those weapons. So because he does get 3 attacks, a 3+ to hit as well as 3+ to wound, and his attacks only do 1 damage, but it's enough to cause some harm. So the Old Ways decides to show Sockhead how it's done and manage to put Sister Rabina out of action with an out-cold result as well. So she will go out the battle report as well and also make a full recovery. I believe that's 4 fighters that the Scavvies managed to put down so far. So the Scavvies, man, they're coming back with a vengeance. They didn't do so great the first time they faced against the Cawdor, but looks like they're really back and they want to make sure they get some payback from the last time that they fought. My little sister, the Kiddo, then activates her Redemptionist Brethren partner Gizmern, who's armed with a shotgun as well as an Exterminator. And he actually does double movements as well, moving up forward, going a move activation right next to Simeon the Summoner, so that way he can lend medical aid to him during the end phase to help him kind of recover. Meanwhile, Senior Chain then activates his next Scaly, which is Hiss, which is the Scaly who's armed with a harpoon gun. Hiss does a simple action to move through the fuel tank and a basic action open fire this harpoon gun directly into Baphomet, whose back is directly towards him. Now Hiss does need a 4+ to wound, but he only needs a 4+ to hit, but he only needs a 3+ to wound as well. Not to mention his harpoon also does -3 AP, at the same time only does 1 point of damage as well. And as you can see, managed to put that guy Baphomet out of action. The reason why he's able to do so is because he dragged him directly into the corpse grinder. So when he actually hit Baphomet, he actually caused a serious injury. So because he does go down, but what ends up happening though, of course, with the drag trait that the harpoon launcher has, he can drag him back D3 inches. And when he rolled for his drag roll, he rolled a perfect 6. So because that Baphomet gets dragged directly into the corpse grinder, which automatically puts him out of action, he does suffer an enfeebling injury, which means he goes to recovery. But worse yet though, it also drops his toughness by 1 point. So because of that, now Baphomet is only toughness 2, and he will also miss out his next battle report as he recovers from being thrown directly into a giant blender. And to add insult to injury, Malleus unfortunately fails his cool test after watching his friend being dragged into a giant blender. He actually fails his nerve test and he flees right behind that shanty, and he's currently broken because he doesn't want to get dragged into the corpse grinder either. For her last activation, the kiddo decides to activate Sister Silence. He does try to pull a shot with her stub gun directly into the Charlie Choo Choo. Unfortunately, though, she missed her shot, so nothing much really happened there. So that takes directly to the end phase. As you can see, unfortunately for my sister the kiddo, her Cawdor fighters are dropping like flies one by one. Looks like the Lords of the Pit are slowly engaging in close combat and defeating them in that arena as well. But it's kind of sad for my sister because the Cawdor are actually quite good in close combat. Unfortunately, she's just kind of, dice rolls just kind of been banning her this time around while my buddy Senior Chang, his dice are rolling hot. And unfortunately for the kiddo, the one time she did not need a high die roll, she rolls a perfect 6, and so because of that, she does break her bottle test on that one. So because of that, on her next turn, all of her fighters will only take a cool test and see if they actually stick around for the rest of the fight. Which should not be a major problem for my little sister because she is Cawdor, and Cawdor are actually known to be psychologically pretty strong, all things considered. And because Sister Silence is within 3 inches of Deadhead lead, the execution clock does go another round. So because that, they now only have 4 rounds now in order to keep this guy alive, so that way they can burn him alive with a jet stream of fire. And my friend Senior Chang also has 4 turns in order to try to save his best fighter. And for the reinforcements, the Lady of Rats appears on the table, which is a Redemptionist Deaconess who's armed with a master-crafted Eviscerator as well. So she pops up right next to the crowd, next to the corpse grinders, so that we can start putting down some flames and some blades in order to kill opponents. However, the kiddo is seeing the losses that she's taken so far in the human lives that she has for her gang, and she really doesn't want to risk losing any more fighters than she currently has. After all, this is towards the end of the campaign week, so she wants to be able to have fighters the next turn as well. So because of that, she decides to surrender. She realizes it's not worth it trying to spend this much manpower in order to execute one single mutant. So just like that, the Cawdor slip away, and the Scavvies manage to pull a victory on this one. So that being said, we're going to go directly to the post-game because this battle report is now officially over.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, so let's start off with the kiddos gang, the children of the Deep Friah of House Cawdor. We'll be talking about injuries, advancements, territories, trading posts, their reputation, their new record, as well as a new gang rating. So starting off with injuries, Adamar, Mordo, as well as Sister Rabina all got out cold results and they made full recoveries no problem. However, for Baphomet though, he did go out of action with an enfeebling injury, so because he does go into recovery, so he'll miss out on his next battle report. And to make matters worse, he also loses 1 point to his toughness, so now he's only toughness 3, which is pretty rough. Unfortunately for my little sister though, she also suffered another serious injury with Blake. Blake actually rolled a critical injury during the battle report as well, so they had to do a medical escort mission for this character, so they took him to the Bloodletter, which is the gang's rogue dock, and actually rolled a 5 on that one, so they rolled for his lasting injury to get him stabilized. He actually rolled a humiliating injury, so because that Blake does go to recovery, and to make matters worse, he also loses a point for both his leadership as well as his cool, making leadership 9 as well as cool 9, and he's also going to miss out his next battle report as well. However, not everything is dreary for the children of the Deep Friah. A couple of the fighters actually did level up as well. So Levitico Bonestorm, the Redemptor Priest, who is also leader of this gang as well, leveled to level 1 and actually chose to use 6 of their experience points in order to roll for a skill in the leadership tree, and my little sister managed to roll the Mentor skill. And at the same time, increasing Levitico Bonestorm's credit value by 20 points, which means now that whenever fighters within 6 inches of Levitico Bonestorm actually gain experience points, all of that happens, Levitico takes leadership tests, and if he passes leadership tests, that fighter also gains a bonus experience points, so that part is actually quite good. And Adamar, the Cawdor brethren, also rolled a level up level 1 as well, so because of the kiddo rolled to see exactly what his upgrade would be, because he is a ganger, and actually got to choose between +1 to his intelligence or +1 to his willpower. So because of that, the kiddo decided to increase his intelligence by 1 point, and also make him increase his credit value by 5 points. Now, typically speaking, intelligence gains are kind of seen as a wasted benefit for most fighters. However, though, Adamar does have bomb rats, which means he has to take an intelligence test in order to successfully deploy his bomb rats, so having that lower intelligence is actually going to make him really, really deadly, because as we've seen in earlier battle reports, those bomb rats can bring the pain if they need to. So from her territories, the kiddo actually, from her settlement, she managed to recruit a brand new zealot named the Preceptor, and that character automatically came with a 2-handed hammer, and at the same time managed to drum up 50 credits from that territory. From her thermal vent territory, none of her fighters did recover, because unfortunately she couldn't roll a 6 for those guys, but she did manage to just drum up 50 credits from that territory. From her wastelands territory, she's able to secure 20 credits from that, and also 30 credits from her wall outpost. Unfortunately though, because the number of wounds that number of fighters that went out of action that her gang suffered for this battle report, she did lose one of her territories to the Scavvies. The territory she lost was her Hab block, so because of that, the now Hab level is now in possession of the Scavvies of the Lords of the Pit. So from the trading post, she was able to secure 150 credits from her territories, and when combined with the 30 credits that she had in her stash, gave her 180 credits in total. With her 180 credits, she has a new zealot that she managed to recruit from her settlement, named the Preceptor. She spent 15 credits in order to purchase an exterminator, the two-handed hammer that the Preceptor automatically came with. At the same time, the kid also spent 35 credits to purchase mesh armor as well as an incombustible halberd for the Preceptor as well, so that way she has a better armor save. Also spent another 10 credits to get her an auto pistol for a backup weapon. She also spent 50 credits in order to secure a book of redemption for Litico Bone Storm, so that way he can actually motivate his fighters to do better to charge into close combat, as well as spent the last of her 70 credits to purchase photo goggles for both Sister Rabina and the Preceptor, which are the two new Redemptionist zealots that joined her gang. So here's the Preceptor, which is her brand new Redemptionist Zealot. She's worth 170 credits. She's got 6-inch moon allowance, 4+ weapon skill, 5+ ballistic skill, 3 strength and toughness, 1 wound, 3 initiative, 1 attack, 8 leadership, 7 cool, 8 willpower, as well as 9 intelligence. She's packing mesh armor as well as incombustible halberd, making her a 5-up save against flaming attacks, as well as 5-up armor save in general. She has a two-handed hammer with an exterminator with a one-shot flamer attack, which is at strength 3. She's also got an auto pistol for a backup weapon. She's also got photo goggles, seeing all visibility conditions, and she's also got the fast learner as well as the fanatical skills. For reputation, she does manage to score a point of reputation for the campaign week, but unfortunately she loses that 1 point of reputation for bottling out, which keeps her reputation total at 17. Her new record now is at 2 wins and 1 loss, and her new gang rating now is at 3,115 points. So up next, we're going to talk about Senior Chang and the Lords of the Pit, which is his Scavvy gang. These guys managed to win the scenario and also managed to rescue Deadhead Lee from being killed. So we're going to talk about this gang's injuries as well as any advances they might have had. We'll also talk about their territories, what they purchased in the trading post, and exactly how their other vital statistics such as reputation, as well as record, as well as gang rating have been altered. So let's talk about the gang's benefits real quick. So I didn't talk about the House Cawdor benefits for this gang, for this battle report, because their benefits actually didn't play a role at all in the post gang. But for the Scavvies, because they're underlined, they actually have 2 benefits. One is called Hard as Nails, which means when the gang gains a reputation as part of a scenario, it gains 1 more point of reputation than normal. And they also have another benefit called No Gods or Masters. If the gang's leader participated in a battle and did not go out of action, they gain additional D3 experience points in addition to any other experience they might have gained. In this situation, for the Howler the Cannibal King, he earned 2 additional experience points. So first of all, let's talk about injuries real quick. So Blood Razor went out of action, but he got an out cold result, so he made a full recovery, no harm, no foul. The Master Blaster, however, suffered a critical injury on this one, and they had to do a medical escort mission for the Master Blaster, which is actually quite bad, and the reason why that was the case is because they don't have a rogue doc for this gang. Now, luckily for my buddy Senior Chang, though, he did have 25 credits on his person, and when they actually rolled to see exactly how much this credit cost was going to cost him, I kid you not, he rolled snake eyes on that roll. So because he only had to spend 20 credits that he had with 5 left over in his stash in order to save the Master Blaster. And the lucky SOB, when he rolled again, he rolled a perfect 6 from the Master Blaster, so he goes directly into recovery. Now, he will miss out his next battle report, but considering how the Master Blaster could have easily died due to lack of funds, that could have been a real possibility. My buddy Senior Chang got off easy on that one. In fact, too easy. I don't think he's actually unaligned at all. I think he simply made some deals with some dark gods, but whatever the case may be, we got to continue on with the rest of the stats. So for advancements, Howler the Cannibal King did level up to level 1. At the same time, Senior Chang decided to purchase another mutation for the Howler King, so the Howler the Cannibal King. So because they decided to give him a horrific appearance mutation and also increases credit value by 200 credits. And the reason why I did this is that way, if anybody wants to actually charge the Howler King to engage him in close combat, they have to pass a willpower test before they can do so. Hiss the Scaly also leveled up to level 1, so Senior Chang decided to spend 6 experience points in order to level up his Ballista skill, so now he's Ballista skill 3 now, which makes it even deadlier with that harpoon gun, and also increases credit value by 20 credits. And in spite of suffering his injuries, the Master Blaster also leveled up to level 1, and Senior Chang decided to actually increase his mutation capacity as well with Vast Bulk. So now because that Master Blaster now has 3 wounds on his characteristics, and he also increases credit value by 20 credits as well. And Charlie the Choo Choo, the Warp Horror, also leveled to level 1 as well. Also spent 6 points to roll a random ferocity skill, and he actually rolled up a Berserker skill on this one. So Charlie the Choo Choo now gets an additional clack in close combat when he charges forward because, 3 is not enough apparently. Alright, so from his territories. From his settlement territory, he recruited a brand new mutant outcast hive scum named Bimbag, who came with vast mutation, which means he gets +1 to his wound characteristics. He was also packing a reclaimed autogun as well as a reclaimed auto pistol for his weapons, and he also managed to draw out 30 credits from that territory. From his reclamation zone, he actually gets to subtract 10 credits for any house item list that's in his gang list, to a minimum of 5 credits, and at the same time also managed to drum up 60 credits from that territory. And from his wasteland territory, he's able to raise 20 credits from that. At the same time, he also managed to capture a HAB level from the Children of the Deep Friah because of all the wounds they managed to put on those guys by putting enemy fighters out of action. So because of that, they actually managed to get 6 additional points of reputation from the HAB level, at the same time increasing their credit stash by 10 credits. And lastly, he also won a Slave Pit territory because he won the scenario. And actually, for a Slave Pit scenario, what you do, you can actually roll a d6 for each of your fighters, and if your fighters roll a 6, they learn d3 extra points of reputation. In this case, Charlie the Choo Choo gained 3 experience points, 2 experience points for Sockhead, and 3 experience points for Oculoid number 2. At the same time, he also managed to drum up 30 credits from that territory. Now for the trading post, he managed to scrounge up 150 credits from his territories as well as 120 credits from the scenario as well. And when combined with the Prize of Victory game mechanic for this week, which means that victors earn d6 times 10 credits on top of whatever rewards they get, they actually secured 50 credits for that special rule. So combining all those totals together, they end up with a grand total of 320 credits. With those 320 credits, Senior Chang spent 50 of those credits to recruit a rogue doc named Scabrous Scully, so that way he could also protect his fighters from going out of action in case they suffer a critical injury once again. And he decided to spend 260 credits to recruit a second brute. This time he recruited a sump beast called the Fisher King that came with multiple legs as well as scaly high mutations. And then of course he also spent 15 credits that he left over in order to purchase mesh armor for Binbag, his newly recruited mutant as well. So here's Binbag, his outcast hive scum mutant. He's got 70 credits. He's got 5-inch movement allowance, 4+ weapon skill, 4+ ballistic skill, 3 plus strength and toughness, 2 wounds. And the reason why he has 2 wounds is because he has the vast bulk mutation, which increases wound characteristics by 1 point. He's also got 4 initiative, 1 attack, 8 leadership, cool, willpower, as well as intelligence. He's packing mesh armor for 5 of armor save, as well as a reclaimed auto pistol, as well as a reclaimed autogun, and he also has the vast bulk mutation. And lastly, we have the Fisher King, which is a sump beast, which costs 260 credits. He's got 5-inch wound allowance, 4+ weapon skill, ballistic skill, 5 strength, 6 toughness, 4 wounds. He's got 5 initiative, 2 attacks, 9 leadership, 4 cool, 5 willpower, as well as 9 intelligence. It has ferocious jaws for its main weapon. It's also got multiple legs. It gets +2 to its wound allowance, and also comes with a climber skill. It's got scaly high, which gives it a 4 armor save as well. And these are the stats that my friend Senior Chang chose for his sump beast for the Underhive monster skill. Special rule. He comes with Clamber as well as Unstoppable, Fearsome, as well as True Grit. So this thing is just going to be a battering ram of destruction. As for reputation, he earns 1 point of reputation from having the campaign week, as well as a bonus reputation for the Hard as Nail benefit. He also earns 6 reputation from his territories, as well as 2 points of reputation from the scenario, giving him a grand total of 13 points of reputation in total. His new record now is at 1 win and 1 loss, as new gang rank now is at 2,985 points. So that's good for this week, guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this week, guys. I will catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.